green buttons are all yours. Thank you.
Morning. There's nothing like having a very zoomed in image of yourself appear on a massive screen, so thanks for that. Hi everyone, really excited to talk to you guys today about Assistant. Before I get started, how many of you have ever used a voice product? Siri, Amazon, cool. And how many of you just this morning used a voice product? Okay, that's actually more than I thought. Okay, great. So I'm really excited to talk to you about the age of assistants and what this means. I'll walk you through kind of what we're seeing sort of in the market for assistant and assistance technology. And then also looking forward to talking to you at the roundtables about how you can help use voice technologies for your business. Before I get into it though, let me just rewind a bit. So if you think about how users interacted with Google 10, 20 years ago, it was a very simple sort of task. So users would come to Google with a certain set of questions and keywords, and they knew that they could get the answer that they needed in a sort of reliable and fast sort of way. But what this has done is really changed over time, and this isn't a surprise, but we start to see that the way that users are interacting with Google in a very different way. So instead of just asking for information that was informative, users are now asking for information that helps them get things done. It's more action-oriented. So if you look at some of these queries that we see, it's Google check the weather. So instead of just looking for weather for San Francisco, it's now do it for me and tell me what I need to know. And what's changed is really an evolution of consumer behavior. And this, although this seems really quite simplistic, it really paved the way for how users start to interact in a different way. And we've seen this extensible sort of over time, We've seen this grow as users' expectations are ever changing. And today users constantly expect more and more. So they look at their watches and expect fitness and health information. They use speakers and they don't just expect music, but they now expect answers from Google. And from others as well. And so really, the contextual information that's relevant at certain points of users' days have really become pivotal in this sort of conversation. So users interact with each of these devices at various points in their day, and the reality is their expectation is that what they get out of it is very personalized and relevant. And what we're starting to see in voice technology is the way that users engage is much more actionable, as I'd mentioned, but even more so through voice. So for example, users don't just ask their phones in the traditional sense of typing, they ask the phone to make a call for them. They tell their phones or their mobile devices that they want it to set airplane mode, for example. So it's much more action that's expected in this sort of exchange. And it's really much more conversational as well. And so when we're thinking about voice, it's all about natural language and natural conversation. And what we mean by this, it seems quite simple, but the way that you interact with your phone seems quite basic to ask it to set an alarm. But really what we start to see through the data that we've got is that there's over 5,000 ways that users ask the assistant to set their alarm for them. And so what this means is that we need to understand conversational dialogue and natural language processing to make this most effective. So this is why the Google Assistant was built. It was built to be as informative and as easy to use as possible. It's the easiest way for our users to get things done. So with the Assistant, you can ask it questions, just as you would in the normal sense, and you can get those answers that you've always expected, but they're personalized and they're relevant to you. You can tell it to do things. So you can use the Assistant to set your alarm, you can use the Assistant to place a call or send a message. It's really your personal Google, and it's your way to get things done. How many of you have used Google Assistant before? Just out of curiosity. Okay, so a decent number. So it's not just through Androids. I think this is important. You can also have the Assistant built through iOS. It's downloadable through the App Store as well. So that natural conversation can happen across all mobile devices. And really, our vision for the Google Assistant is that's the most effective way to get things done. And so what the Assistant is all about is giving you your time back, or giving users their time back so they can be most productive. lots of different ways that the assistant can be utilized, and this is done throughout many different points of a user's day. So I'll talk you through some of these use cases, but really controlling devices in your home. So when you start, you wake up in the morning, you can use it as an alarm. You can use it, as you're in your kitchen. I'll walk you through some really nice examples there. You can use it, of course, to enjoy movies and music. Communicate with others. There's lots of different use cases for the assistant, and I'll take you through some of these here. So really where the assistant plays is across the entire user journey. And the ones I want to focus on, and these are really the key points that we think that we can have the most value with the assistant. So this begins with the home. It's extensible through the car, and I'll walk you through these on mobile devices, and then also reaching our next billion users. And so when we think about the assistant in the home, it's all about ambient computing. And this is all about control in your home so that your families or you can just be more productive throughout your day. And so really, this is utilized across many different devices across the Internet of Things. So this includes smart displays and TVs and many different areas where control can really be done in the home. When we think about the car with the assistant is all about safety and allowing our users to not have distractions while they're driving. Something that was newly released at I/O just a few months ago was the ability to integrate with WhatsApp, so you can give your estimated ETA to family or friends. You can also search for places while you're driving, and you can ask it questions as you normally would. But the idea here is that it makes the experience much more productive and less distractions in the car. And on mobile phones, this is probably where you've seen the assistant used most often. This is, of course, about providing a seamless, engaging experience across mobile devices. Some of the new bits that have come out through I/O are really about transactions and making that sort of seamless end-to-end experience on our mobile devices. What's really interesting, actually, is if you look at the demographics and how users are engaging with the assistant on their mobile devices, for the younger audience, I know we talked about the younger demographic having less attention span. What we see is actually younger folks pick up the phones and tell the assistant to place a call for them. So maybe we in the room might go and look up the contact and place the call ourselves. The expectation's changing now so that users really just open up their phone and expect it to do that sort of action for them. So really some changing behavior there. And we're ready to help across the next billion devices. So currently, this is the newest stat. We're in around a billion devices. In the most traditional sense, the devices without the screens. So you'll of course have seen our speakers, our headphones, the without screen products are probably the most prevalent that you've seen. The devices with the screens is really something that we're excited about. So this is where we start to tie in tablets, the Google Home Hub, if anyone has that. That's a newly launched product, which is amazing for things like recipes. So if you're cooking, it's a great use case. But if you're cooking and your hands are tied up, you can actually use the assistant there. You can tell it your ingredients that you've got, and it will display some of the recipes through some of the partnerships that we've got. And of course, it's a growing audience as well. So we've got about 30 countries that are represented and ever growing, of course. 80 countries, and 30 languages. And this is ever growing. And we're gaining this as we enhance the machine learning processes. And we're starting to get some really interesting feedback from our users to kind of give us the confidence that we know that what we're working toward is really on the right track. So 70% of users say that digital assistants simplify their lives, which of course is the mission that we're after. 80% say that they would like to engage with brands via their digital assistants. So as brands, you have the opportunity to engage with folks as they're starting to use this emergent technology. So what does this mean for you? I mean, that's how we see it on the Google side of things, but what does this really mean for your brand? We really think that assistant and assistant technologies are a way to evolve your brand and your brand's personality. And we really mean this through an extension of your brand. So if your brand takes on a sort of quirky sort of role, there's a way to do that through the assistant. If you look at Progressive, Progressive is a big insurance company in the US, if anyone's familiar with them. They have Flo, who's a character who comes through in their TV campaigns, and they've used her voice in the assistant, so that sort of brand comes to life in a really, really great way. So there are ways to kind of leverage that branding that's so powerful. Lots of other examples, happy to talk you through them at the roundtable. I keep mentioning the recipes because that's something that's very near and dear to me. But a lot of great stuff with recipes, also with transactional information with Panera here, also out of the US, and some really good ones with fitness companies, among many, many others. So if you were to get started with the Google Assistant from the brand's perspective, there's a couple key things that we really strongly recommend that you start with. The first is your use case. We want to make sure that the use case that you have is really relevant for users and that you're driving a differentiated experience. So making sure that your branding comes to life and that it's personalized for your users, but really allows your brand to come through. Your persona. So again, we want to make sure that your persona as a brand really comes to life through the assistant. And also bearing in mind the user experience. So I mentioned that natural sort of dialogue and flow, but just making sure that it's very, very natural and it's understanding how users will engage very uniquely with your brand. Lots of different ways for your brand to come through. The first one is the most traditional way. So this is in-display actions. So this is the natural conversation your brand can surface sort of as a result or as it's relevant. We also have an actions directory. We call them actions, as you may be familiar. We have an actions directory where users can engage with all of the actions that are available on the assistant. And then, of course, you can link from your own channels and within them, so it's sort of an embedded user experience as well. We've got lots and lots of partnership promotion. This is one key thing that we're focused on is leveraging our partners across so many different facets, but just making sure that those partnership promotions can help really bring to life the brands that are active on the assistant. And really, there's no better way to re-engage your users than to capture them where they are. And we really think that the assistant is a nice way to re-engage them. On the left side of the screen, this is through sort of action notifications. So very similar, to how you would have notifications and interactions on your mobile device. And on the right-hand side is all about daily habitual usage. So Starbucks is a great example of this, but they'll remember what you've ordered, they'll personalize that experience, and they'll make the assistant sort of part of your everyday life. This is really exciting for us, but the transactional capabilities is something that's emerging. It's now available in 20 plus countries, all facilitated through things like Google Payments, seamless account linking, so there's ways to link accounts, and also re-engagement and order details as well. So a way to kind of carry through that full end-to-end user journey. Lots of different resources. We'll make sure that you have all of these, and really happy to take your questions and have discussions at the roundtable. Thank you so much.